Hi everyone, Michael Smith here. Of all the themes we can experience in life, duality is perhaps the most fundamental to how we perceive the world and who we are as physical spiritual beings. However, when we think of duality, we tend to see it as good versus bad and right versus wrong, but that's a very narrow and actually judgmental view of what duality fully represents. In numerology, the vibrational meaning of numbers, the number 2 resonates with the theme of duality, polarity, and contrast. Like the yin and yang symbol shown here, duality is the paradoxical principle of unity through opposites, of neutrality through the polarity of positive and negative, clarity through the contrast of light and dark, and symmetry through the balance of equal and opposite form. And like all things vibrational, the 2 of duality resonates with a polarized range through which we can respond, from the positive expressions of cooperation, balance, and peace, to the negative expressions of separation, competition, and conflict, and everything in between. And in recent years, we've certainly experienced our fair share of what duality has to offer. In this video, we're going to use numerology to examine duality more closely, to help us understand how we can navigate such polarized times more gracefully and more constructively. In particular, we'll look at the numerology of several major conflicts of the past century, of the recent pandemic years, and of a new era of exploring duality that we've just actually begun. Through this vibrational lens, we will gain a chronological perspective of how we tend to deal with duality in general, and how far we've actually come. Of all the possible expressions of duality we can encounter, perhaps the starkest is that of war versus peace. Numerology helps reveal how, on a vibrational level, all war and conflict actually resonates with the darker side of the 2 theme of duality. To illustrate, let's look at the start dates of 3 major conflicts which have occurred within the last century: World War I, World War II, and most recently the war in Ukraine. Before we begin, the numerology of any date is derived by adding the month, day, and year together and reducing it to a single digit. And every single digit corresponds to a specific theme with which it resonates, such as the 2 of duality. In base 12 numerology, the approach I use, that's based on counting in 12s, using the single digits from 0 to 11, while traditional base 10 numerology counts in 10s, using 0 to 9 as the single digits. Also, whenever a date sums to a double digit, and therefore needs to be reduced again to get to a single digit, the final digit represents the overall outer theme, while the 2 previous digits represents the inner themes through which that outer theme is expressed. And we'll cover that here. With that, we see that the start date of World War I, July 28, 1914, resonates with the 20/2 theme of the 2 of duality as an overall outer energy, expressed through the 2 plus 0 inner themes of duality of potential. As such, this date resonated with duality as a choice between 2 potentials, a test of declaring war or not, basically. Next, the start date of World War II, September 1st, 1939, resonated with the 11/2 theme of mastery of self, a double-digit 11, or just duality, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Whenever the same double digit occurs in numerology like this, such as 11, 22, or 33, it's called a master number and represents an even more extreme expression of its single-digit theme. That's because a master number has 2 levels or octaves of intensity. Its higher, unreduced double-digit energy of mastering the theme, here the 11 of mastering the 1 energy, of new beginnings, self, and unity, or the lower energy of what those double digits reduce to. In this case, 1 plus 1 equals 2 of duality, opposition, and conflict. Again, conflict was the choice that was made. And like World War I, many countries participated in the war on a full scale. Last, the start date of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia on February 24, 2022, resonated with the very same energy as World War II, the 11/2 theme of mastery of self versus duality. However, this time, war was a choice really made by only one country, Russia, with Ukraine trying to defend itself and others indirectly helping it do so. This to me suggests how our collective attitude towards war has matured greatly over the past century, such that only a few remaining extremist countries consider all-out war a preferred option. Note too that in traditional base 10 numerology, all three dates resonate with the 14/5 energy of change through new beginnings of structure, or destruction in this case. Although base 10 numerology doesn't reflect the deeper core theme of duality, which I feel war ultimately represents, it does reflect the outer impact of war, of change in a destructive way. I often find general agreements such as this between base 10 and base 12 numerology. After all, both follow the same number themes from 0 to 9 and work in the very same way. It's just that base 12 also includes single-digit themes for 10 and 11, giving it a slightly more refined and precise vibrational focus, in my opinion. Let's now focus on other current events highlighting duality, the pandemic in particular. But to do so, we should begin at 2016, a very pivotal year vibrationally for humanity, which sets the tone for the entire next century. Now in base 12, a century is actually 144 years long, 12 times 12, rather than the 100 years we normally think in terms of, 10 times 10. As such, 2016 in base 10 is actually the year 1200 in base 12, and therefore mark the end of an 1100/2 era of exploring duality through mastery of self, which is the higher expression of the double-digit 11, versus duality and self-interest, the lower expression of the 1 + 1 = 2. It was also the start of a 1200/3 era of exploring duality in a new and catalytic way, since 1 + 2 = 3 of the catalyst, of using duality proactively as a means of influence. This theme of engaging duality strategically played out in a number of major events. Donald Trump elected US president in a highly polarized race and polarizing presidency, the equally polarizing Brexit referendum with Britain voting to leave the European Union, and the peace deal struck in Colombia to end decades of civil war. Note how all three of these examples use the polarized tool of voting, of win versus lose, in trying to manage duality, essentially using duality to reduce duality. But such is the paradoxical nature of duality itself. It often provokes the use of fire to fight fire, so to speak. Interestingly, Donald Trump's expression number in base 12 numerology, the energy of his birth name and how he can best express his calling, is that same double-digit 11 of mastery of self, of unflappable initiative and self-confidence at best, and extreme division and competitiveness at worst, the 1 + 1 = 2 energy of duality. Now we move on to 2019, the start of the pandemic. This year resonated with the 1203/6 theme of experiencing harmony versus discord, 6, caused by the pandemic as a catalyst, 3, of new duality, 1 and 2. As such, this was a very catalytic and viral year, not only for the spread of the virus, but also of fear and insecurity in general. The base 12 numerology of the word virus itself resonates with the 22 vibration of either mastering duality in a positive way, 22 as a master number not reduced, or of the negative aspects of the 2 + 2 = 4 of structure, of instability, insecurity, and feeling unsafe. Next, 2020 was a year of discerning truth versus falsehood, the energy of 7, through the structure and control, 4, imposed by new duality, the 1 and the 2. A very unsettled year in which the full destabilizing effect of the pandemic was felt, of social and emotional distancing and mandatory vaccination, but also scientific and medical collaboration and folks simply helping each other get by. A restructuring year on many levels. 2021 was instead a year of abundance versus lack, the energy of the 8, as we adapted, 5, to the new duality, the 1 and the 2, of adjusting to the new normal and redefining how to manifest abundance in a time of great change. Now the current year of 2022 is a year of completion versus loss, of 9, by making harmony, 6, with new duality, the 1 and the 2. basically of putting the worst of the pandemic behind us, hopefully, of discarding what no longer serves us and moving on with what does. So, recent years have been polarized times indeed, and pretty challenging to navigate. But a lot of good is coming out of this experience too. A shakeup of a divided worldview that needed something to focus on together. Now, the very nature of vibration and of ourselves as consciousness is that of duality in motion, of positive and negative expressed in equal measure. And only by experiencing the contrast between self and other can we gain the self-awareness that is consciousness. In fact, only through light and dark can we make out any picture at all. We are that very embodiment of the duality, of energy masquerading as matter, of the spiritual playing a physical role, and of the eternal pretending to be mortal. And these polarized times have provided such contrast in spades. The prime vibration shown here offers a picture of that duality in motion, representing the cycle of 12 fundamental frequencies or themes we experience and resonate with. It is only by experiencing the ups and downs of the entire spectrum that we become more enlightened, just as all colors of visible light combine into the clarity of white light. And if there's one characteristic that defines the cycle more than anything else, it's duality. In its balanced symmetry of up-down polarity of positive versus negative relative to neutral, its left-right polarity of physical versus spiritual relative to self, and its forward-backward polarity of sequence and time relative to the now moment and to love itself. So, the takeaway from all of the contrasts we've been experiencing in recent years is that we are getting a real masterclass in duality, a greater discernment of what's truly important that can serve us well in working towards a more inclusive, cooperative, and peaceful world. And sometimes it takes a global catalyst, such as a pandemic, to put us all in the same boat so that we can practice rowing together better. Such is the power of the two of duality, to help see ourselves more clearly through contrast and see others as equals through our shared response to that contrast. Thanks for watching.